What's up YouTube, I'm Mike and today I'm back with a very short video to go over some of the effects that I've been experiencing over the course of this last week with an experiment that I've been running. If you've been following this channel for any length of time, you know that two of the major struggles I have had with really just about every single one of my cycles is that as soon as I get on any even remotely reasonable amount of gear, or if I'm running Tren or Deca, certainly any of the Nandrolone derivatives, I have problems with blood pressure and with resting pulse rate. The blood pressure I got dialed in by using anywhere between 120 and 160 milligrams of telmisartan daily. That keeps my blood pressure down around 120, 125 over 80 to 90. But the thing that I have yet to be able to conquer has been the resting pulse. I've made several videos talking about this. During the course of this last cycle, I could be laying in bed first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening. I could have been laying in bed next to my wife just talking. I could have been laying in bed just watching like a chill movie, doing absolutely nothing to get my heart rate up. And I have seen pulse rates as high as 110 laying in bed. Usually they hover around 100 or 100 plus beats a minute. And that's just been the name of the game for every one of these cycles. Usually when I have a high resting pulse rate, I get out of breath easily, and I have a lot of symptoms of anxiety. I've had chest pains that I've made videos about. Any number of effects, they're basically all bad. It's something that over the course of blasting and cruising, I've just come to accept. It's just like, it is part of the game. It's what it, it is what it is. There's nothing I've ever been able to do to counteract it. And then over the course of the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks that I've been on 200 milligrams of Tren, again, I've just been having a lot of psychological problems, as I'm sure many of you have noticed. Basically, again, to reiterate, everybody's been saying, you can't handle the Tren, get off the Tren, it's gonna destroy your marriage, it's gonna destroy your life. It has definitely caused me problems every time that I have run doses above 200 milligrams or above. The first Tren cycle I ever ran, I started at 200 milligrams and I think went up to 300. I've run Tren as high as 550 milligrams per week. Those cycles always were a minimum of 9 weeks, usually 12, despite what all the bro science tells you about how long you can run Tren. I've made a number of videos about the fact that I do not believe that Trenbolone is hepatotoxic. I don't give a shit what anybody says. My blood work has never revealed it. I have asked every big name in the industry to refute this with any kind of empirical data. Of course, none of these people watch my channel, but I'm still open to any data from anyone conclusively showing that Trenbolone is hepatotoxic, because it certainly does not raise AST, ALT levels. Some people say, well, that's not a good metric of your liver function, yammer, yammer, yammer. I just don't fucking believe it because nobody has any data. Not to mention the fact that 9 times out of 10, when somebody's running Tren, they're also running a number of other compounds. Very rarely is somebody on test and a whole bunch of Tren and nothing else and had perfectly good liver function before that to be able to establish that the Trenbolone is in fact what's causing liver problems. I do not believe any of the bullshit. I do not believe that Trenbolone is neurotoxic. I do believe, however, that it is very catastrophic to your sleep. And anytime you don't get enough sleep, then you can have effects of neurotoxicity. Primarily the buildup of beta amyloid plaques. I've talked about this in previous videos. And again, everybody likes to get in the comments and nobody likes to put forth any data. And so until I see it, I'm not fucking listening to it. So rather than quit the Tren, again this time, despite all of the effects that I was having, I decided to do an experiment. I mentioned that I have started using Xanax to try to cope with some of the psychological issues that I have been experiencing. And I am very, very happy to report that the effects have been far better than I could have imagined. Before I tell the effects, I want to be very clear that I am not ready to take this to the bank. It's way too early. We're only 1 week in. There's a lot of shit that could go wrong. Right now, I am only taking a 1/4 milligram of Xanax every day. I take it at night with my Ambien. The Xanax has allowed me to reduce my Ambien dose that was going as high as 20 milligrams a day. I was taking a minimum of 15, sometimes 20, to be able to go to sleep on 200 milligrams of Tren E, 500 milligrams of Test E, and I was using Anadrol, but I had just as many problems without the Anadrol sleeping. 15 to 20 milligrams a day is what it was requiring of Ambien in order for me to get to sleep. Since I started the Xanax at 1/4 of a milligram, I'm taking 5 milligrams of Ambien only, and it is knocking me out every single night. One of the problems that I was having with the Xanax is I would take 10 milligrams, I would wait 30 minutes, it wouldn't be working. I would try to lay next to my wife and cuddle. I would try to just close my eyes. I would try reading books. I would try listening to music. Then I'd have to take another 5 milligrams, sometimes another 5. I mean, going to bed could be a 2-hour process or longer. When the Ambien is working, what it actually does is while it doesn't knock me out, when the Ambien is actually a sufficient dose, if I'm reading my phone, if I'm watching a movie, if I'm reading a book, I just start losing the ability to focus, and I can tell that I'm getting groggy, and so I put my phone down and I go straight to sleep. That's the effect that I want. I want to be able to go easily to sleep without the racing thoughts, trying to solve every problem in the world, worrying about my marriage, worrying about my kids. That shit is catastrophic to your sleep. Now that I'm taking the 1/4 milligram of Xanax and only 5 milligrams of Ambien, which I am planning to wean off of, I am going straight to sleep within 30 minutes of both doses kicking in. I've been taking the Xanax a little early and then the Ambien later. And I'm probably going to start combining those. The problem with the Ambien is you can't take it with food. So I can take the Xanax with food. It still kicks in very rapidly. I have to wait till my stomach is emptied, and then I can take the Ambien, or I take the Ambien and then I have to wait a half hour before I put food in so that I can go to sleep, and that's one of the fucking big nightmares of Ambien. So for the sleep problem, 1/4 milligram of Xanax only has totally knocked out my sleep problem. Because I'm getting to sleep, I have a lot less of the psychological stress, but the significance of the sleep is not just that it's knocking me out. I'm getting much deeper, much more recuperative sleep, and I'm frequently dreaming throughout the night. So again, I mentioned this in the previous video, that is not something that I have been experiencing for a very long time. I'm getting clearly into a much deeper REM sleep state. I'm tracking all of this with my watch. There's obviously a lag, so I'm gonna wait until I get good data, and then maybe I'll put up those charts to show the differences in what my sleep quality looked like before the Xanax and what it looks like after the Xanax. On top of that, if that wasn't fucking proof positive enough, another effect has come on that I didn't even expect. Last night, I'm laying in bed with my wife, and we're talking about how great this has been going. The side effects of the Tren have been turned down to an unbelievable degree. They've been turned down so much that I told my wife last night in bed that I was afraid that it was removing my intensity, that it was removing the aggression. Luckily, I found out today that's not the case. But I was feeling so much different on just 1/4 milligram of Xanax that I actually was concerned that it was like making the Tren less psychologically effective. Last night, laying there for 30 minutes or so talking to my wife, I look at my watch and my resting pulse rate was 78 beats a minute. I haven't seen 78 beats a minute as a resting pulse since I was on nothing but TRT, and that doesn't even always guarantee it to get that low. My pulse last night, instead of being 108 or 105 laying in bed, was 78 beats a minute. I woke up this morning, my wife and I had to go to Lowe's and to Walmart to pick up some stuff for our trailer. I was driving down the road and I was a little bit animated. I had been a little bit irritated that the guy in front of me was driving 10 miles an hour under the speed limit. So I thought, hey, this is a good time to check. Look at the watch, 88 beats a minute. Right now my pulse is 87 beats. Usually my pulse is 110 plus when I'm making these fucking videos. And I've been going through a whole bunch of shit this evening with this stupid water heater for our trailer. So already within a week's time, my resting pulse rate is 20 to 30 beats lower than it has been for the duration of this cycle. Now, I suspect that it goes without saying that is a much better condition for my heart. I have clearly, in my estimation, been suffering from near chronic panic attacks or near chronic panic or mania disorder basically the entire time I have been on cycle. I am rapidly beginning to believe that the reason that I have such an acute response to so many of these drugs, I've made videos when I took T-ball, when I took Anadrol, Anavar, Trenbolone, most any compound I take seems to just amp me up to this insane degree. My thoughts race 9,000 miles an hour. I'm processing so many things all day long, calculating, planning, being paranoid. Like the sea of voices in my head is just like a fucking auditorium full of screaming fucking people constantly. One of the things that I've noticed since I started the Xanax is the volume in my head has been turned way down. I have thoughts, independent thoughts that I can look at and examine and then move to the next. Today, when I've been having frustrations with my wife over this water heater, the trend is still definitely in the system. I'm snippy and snappy, I'm irritable and cranky, just like the trend always causes. But instead of being this thing where I snap and I say something critical and then she's kind of like, I know I fucked up, I'm sorry, or I know I didn't really think about it, and then I just fucking pounce on her and start nagging and tearing at her and pulling her down and catastrophizing everything and the world's falling apart and all of our dreams are stupid and we've wasted all this time. It's like the frustration sets off, it climbs, I express myself, and then it goes away because the thoughts are not coming in such rapid succession. Instead of having a negative thought and having a moment to think about it and cope with it and deal with it, in the past, it's just been like negative thought, negative thought, negative thought, negative thought, negative thought. It just won't shut the fuck up. I am rapidly starting to believe that I have just been in a state of panic for months. And that's why everything seemed so much like a bigger deal than it was. The problems in the world haven't changed. But right now, today, my outlook on things is totally different. When I'm walking around the store, my understanding level of people being in my way, the way I respond to people in public, the way I was able to cope with the fucking guy driving like an idiot in traffic, instead of just like driving behind this guy and tailgating him and being pissed the fuck off, my wife's sitting next to me and I'm saying, maybe he's nervous. You know, it was raining. Like, maybe he's not paying attention. Maybe he's nervous. Maybe he got a fucking phone call. I'm looking for excuses for this guy's idiotic behavior, which ended up just being that he was clearly distracted because we got to a light turned green, and then he was going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. So clearly he was distracted. But rather than just be foaming at the mouth and getting ready to get out of the car and throttle this fucking guy, I was able to slow down for a minute and go, dude, the fact that this guy's going 10 miles an hour under the speed limit probably doesn't mean that he's looked up into his rearview mirror and seen you and decided to go out of his way to fuck your day up. He's not attacking you. He's probably on his phone. And yeah, that's fucking irritating. But you know what? Sometimes so am I. Sometimes I'm the asshole driving down the phone because my mind's going 10 million miles an hour and I'm researching some stupid thing that I'm going to buy and then realize, oh shit, I'm fucking up traffic. It's made it a lot easier for me to see the humanity in other people and recognize it in me. At night, the conversations that I have with my wife have taken a totally different look. Usually nighttime is like a fucking dicey time around here because as the day starts coming to an end, it's actually kind of a panic trigger for me. I think that's why I don't go to sleep. My wife calls it sleep procrastination. It's like as the night comes closer to an end, rather than feeling like content and like, okay, I got a bunch of shit accomplished today, it's time to hit the sack, get some good recuperative sleep, and get out of it the next day. I'm like, no, it's not time yet. I haven't gotten enough done. I need to solve some more problems. I need to figure out some more things. What about my son's school? What about my daughter's this? What about the trailer? What about our money? What about the, my brain, it's like it panics. It literally panics every night. And I start throwing all the weight of the world on my shoulders, and all the problems that haven't been solved in the day, they just start getting the volume turned up on them as the night goes on. And then I just spiral. I'll just be laying in bed with these fucking depressive states, talking to my wife, because generally I'm feeling crushed by the weight of all that has not been accomplished yet. And with the fucking Xanax that I take in the evening, it just takes the edge right off. In a lot of ways, it's like the positives of weed. You know, like I've tried to use THC in the past. Sometimes I smoke or vaporize or eat an edible, and I get a good, feel-good high. You know, I'm kind of disconnected. I'm just feeling kind of like, fuck it, nothing really matters. Everything's chill. My physical sensation goes up. Sex feels better with my wife, and it's a great time. I can take the exact same edible, the exact same dose the next day and be fucking miserable. Just feel panicked and disassociated, and my self-esteem goes in the toilet, and I start doubting every single decision I've made for the past 20 years. It's brutal. So a lot of guys in the comments will be like, dude, you need to try some THC. It's just not predictable enough for me. I think a lot of it has to do with if you're using edibles, obviously what your stomach contents look like. If there's a lot of fat in your stomach, they hit a lot harder, they hit a lot faster than if it's, you know, there's all kinds of variables. And those variables are what seems to cause the problems for me. So at 1/4 milligram of Xanax, I can chill. It takes the edge off. It's helped me to sleep at night. It's lowered my resting pulse by a substantial amount. And then the other thing that I've noticed is that my appetite is improving and I'm rapidly gaining weight. So where I had dropped down to 186 a week ago at my lowest, I'm back up to 191. I have been able to eat again because I don't have this stomach that's full of acid just rotting all day long. Again, I think that's another sign of the anxiety and the panic that I've been feeling. I just have a constantly nervous stomach. And so nobody likes to eat in that condition. It's probably why I've been losing weight. So all of these problems that I've been having, from poor diet, high resting pulse rate, inability to sleep at night, catastrophizing all of the things that are going on in my life, being very cranky and irritable with my family and the people around me, these all happen to also be side effects of panic attacks and anxiety disorders. So it's a bit suspicious that when I take an anti-anxiety drug, it knocks out all of those side effects. And if that wasn't enough, here's the kicker. While I added 1/4 milligram of Xanax to the mix to try to offset the 200 milligrams of Tren and the 500 milligrams of Test E, I also added 300 milligrams of Masteron, and last night or the night before, I added another 100 milligrams of Test to the mix. So I am now currently on 600 milligrams of Test, Test E, 200 milligrams of Tren E, 300 milligrams of Masteron E, and 5, not 4, 5 units of growth hormone. I use a growth hormone. So while adding 1/4 milligram of Xanax, I have added 400 milligrams of extra androgens plus another IU of GH. And still, with the addition of all of those hormones, all of the negative side effects are less than they were at the lower doses. So again, because I know I'm prone to placebo, although I think you'd have to admit this would be one hell of a placebo effect if I can somehow manage to lower my resting pulse 30 beats a minute psychologically, but I'm not ruling anything out. This would be one hell of a placebo effect. So again, as elections go, it's way too early to call. Some of my concerns are, and those were tested a little bit today. I told my wife, I said, my biggest concern right now with combining a drug like Xanax and Trenbolone is Trenbolone can cause in my body type extreme aggression and rage and all of the things that you've seen on this channel. And Xanax tends to cause a reduced fear of consequences. You put those two things together and you could have a really ugly mix. And so today, when I've had some challenges, when I've had some triggers and some frustrations, it was a good test to see, is this gonna push me beyond the level, and then the Xanax is gonna give me the lack of give a fuck to actually do something that could be catastrophic. Thus far, that has not happened. Thus far, we have not gotten anywhere close to that. In fact, thus far, the direct opposite has been occurring. Every time I've had a trigger or an experience that 2 weeks ago would have led to a massive Trenbolone meltdown, I have been able to look objectively at the situation and protect the fucking cycle. I feel more stable right now than I have felt in a very, very long time. And it really makes me sad to report the truth, which is the only reason, I can't remember if I mentioned this in the previous video. The only reason I stopped taking Xanax this last time was because I was abusing my Dexedrine at the time. And I knew that the Xanax was basically reducing the high that I was getting from the speed. And so I voluntarily tapered off the Xanax so I could get more out of the speed that I was abusing. I never stopped the Xanax because the Xanax was causing me problems. I never stopped the Xanax because I didn't think I needed it. I stopped the Xanax because I was trying to get higher than I already was on a drug that I had no business taking. And I have basically been suffering ever since. I have been coping with my anxiety for all of these years because at some point I decided, like a fucking idiot, that having an anxiety disorder that I couldn't control was unmasculine. I decided that real men don't need fucking drugs like Xanax or antidepressants to cope with their fucking life. You know, you just fucking dig in and you fucking deal with it. You know, my dad was kind of always, he never took drugs like that. He was always like, you should need to go to work. Your fucking problem is you spend too much time fucking around. If you were busier, you wouldn't be sitting here thinking about all this shit. You wouldn't have all these fucking problems. And so over a period of time, I decided that real men just cope with their fucking problems. And you just carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. And so I never wanted to go back on a drug where I had to say, you know, I'm being propped up by this Xanax. Otherwise, I'd be a total fucking basket case. Meanwhile, I take all of these other drugs because I feel like they make me more of a man, and that's okay. And so you see the problems that your own negative self-talk can cause, these bullshit regulations that you put on yourself. No one did this to me but me. I decided all of these things and I've been suffering ever since. So there you have it. I intended to make this video short and sweet. Obviously that was a failure. Just wanted you guys who care to know this is where things are going right now. Far better than I expected. I was expecting to need at least a 0.5 milligram of Xanax. It's what I'm being prescribed currently. I am trying my damnedest to keep it at 1/4 milligram. Obviously, the lower the dose is, then the easier it will be if there's ever a time that I have to taper off of it. I'm going to try to wean completely off of the Ambien because, again, I think it's just better to not be combining the two for so many reasons. So if I can get myself to a place where I can sleep good without the Ambien and the Xanax doesn't cause any more problems, then maybe, just maybe, we have found a cocktail that will work. Not to mention the fact that the Xanax is working with this volume. So where are we at now? We got 600 plus 300, that's 900. We're at 1,100 milligrams of gear right now and 5 IUs of GH. So, you know, not crazy doses. I mean, there's guys taking 3 grams of shit a week. I'm at 1,100 milligrams. And I'm feeling phenomenal on this dose of Xanax. So I would expect that when I come off cycle and go from 1,100 milligrams down to 200 or 250, things should only get better and not worse. And so there you have it. Really, I have no negatives to report. I expected to feel a little sedated during the day. And while I don't feel the same intensity, like I was saying, I definitely don't feel the same drive that I had before I started taking the Xanax. I also don't feel all of the fucking weight of the world and the frustration and irritation and little hissy fit throwing types of behaviors. All of those things are gone as well. My wife said to me last night that she could physically feel, and she feels like the entire family can feel, the difference in the energy in this house. She said when I'm on cycle, it's just like I'm fucking running around here just vibrating at this really high level. And I just give off this buzz about me that everyone can pick up on. And over the last week, the volume of that buzz has just been turned down to a minimum. And so that's where we're at today. 600 milligrams of Test E, 200 milligrams of Trenbolone E, 300 milligrams of Masteron E, 1/4 milligram of Xanax, 5 milligrams of Ambien, half a milligram of cabergoline, 5 IUs of GH, and I think that's about it. So hopefully this has been informative. Again, I'm not advocating that anybody go out and repeat my fucking experiment. If anyone has successfully used benzos on cycle, I would love to hear that data. Obviously, the majority of you think this is going to crash and burn in a phenomenal way. And if it does, then you guys will be the first or maybe second to know about it. So as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.